Okay, hi, I'm Max. Today I will be giving you a summary of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's 2014 Synthesis Report on Climate. The big question everyone asks when thinking about climate change is, what will our future look like? In summary, the report says that climate change threatens irreversible and dangerous impacts, but options exist to limit its effects. The major findings of the report are that surface temperatures will increase, sea levels will rise, the ocean will become more acidic, the temperature of the ocean will increase, specifically the surface of the ocean in subtropical and tropical regions in the northern hemisphere. Near-surface permafrost will reduce up to 81% by 2100 for business-as-usual scenarios. And precipitation will change. Precipitation will increase. Areas affected by monsoons will increase, and El Niño precipitation events will intensify. Business as usual is represented by the red line, which shows that by 2100, there will be a 4.8 degrees Celsius increase in global average surface temperature relative to 1986 to 2005. The best case scenario is represented by the blue line and shows that by 2100, there will be a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in global average surface temperature. To achieve the best case scenario, we need to practically halt CO2 emissions and even take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Unless we learn to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, the report says there will likely be an increase of at least 2 degrees Celsius, which is actually what world leaders have agreed is their goal. Sea level rise is basically the result of all the ice melting around the globe. Business as usual is again represented by the red line and shows that by 2100, there will be a 4/5 of a meter increase in global mean sea level relative to 1986 to 2005. The best case scenario shows that by 2100, there will be a 1/2 meter increase in global mean sea level. Sea level rise is very contingent on carbon dioxide emissions, so the more we lower carbon dioxide emissions, the less the sea will rise. There will be a 0.32 decrease in pH by 2100 for business as usual. Marine life is used to a very specific pH, so when the pH changes, entire species can go extinct. There will be more effects than just increased surface temperatures from climate change. Other sectors that will be affected are human health and livelihoods, food and water security, biodiversity, and marine ecosystems. Storm surges, extreme weather, sea level rise, extreme heat, and flooding all pose a severe threat to human health and livelihoods. There will be a greater likelihood of injury and death from heat waves, fire, and disease. There will be increased risks from vector-borne diseases, and increased temperatures and humidity are going to compromise human activities such as farming and working outdoors. Food and water security is going to be a big problem in the future. Poor populations are going to be affected more so than others. There's going to be a reduction of surface water and groundwater, which is going to lead to intensified competition among sectors. Production and price stability will be affected. For example, production for wheat, rice, and maize is going to decrease in most areas, while in some areas it will actually increase because of the varying climate system. Biodiversity and goods and services that stem from ecosystems are going to be at risk as ecosystems are lost. Many species already go extinct every day, and more will continue to do so. Marine ecosystems are at risk from ocean acidification. which is basically a fancy word for the pH of the ocean dropping. Coral reefs are bleaching because of ocean acidification. And as many of you have read on the news, many coral reefs have already begun to die. Adaptation is one way that we can cope with climate change. That's the good news. Some examples of adaptation included in the report were ecological restoration, such as mangrove conservation and reforestation, social safety nets and social protection, such as vaccines, better health care, and better access to emergency services. We need to raise awareness and integrate climate change education into education. And then engineered and built environment options, such as seawalls. We need to make cultural, political, community, and personal decisions to reduce vulnerability and risk and support adaptation, mitigation, and sustainable development. And we need to change our individual and collective assumptions, beliefs, values, and worldviews that influence climate change responses. By the way, the definition of adaptation is a change or process by which an organism or species becomes better suited to its environment. Another way we can cope with climate change is through mitigation. Mitigation is the action of reducing the severity, seriousness, or painfulness of something. Some examples mentioned in the report were improved buildings by switching to low-carbon fuels, using efficient devices for heating and cooling systems, increasing building lifetime and durability, and using low-energy construction materials. We need to replace hydrofluorocarbon, a man-made greenhouse gas used as a refrigerant. We need to use sustainable forest management, cropland management, and restoration of organic soils. We need to use fossil fuels with carbon capture and storage to replace the use of coal, and switch to low-carbon fuels such as hydrogen, electricity from low-carbon sources, and biofuels. I found this quote in the report that says that delaying additional mitigation to 2030 will substantially increase the challenges associated with limiting warming over the 21st century to below 2 degrees Celsius relative to pre-industrial levels. So what does this mean? This means that adaptation can only go so far, and mitigation will be our main means of coping in the future. And this future that I'm talking about isn't decades away, it's the near future. It's within all of our lifetimes, and it starts right now. There weren't many recommendations for policymakers in the report, but the few that I could find were invest in innovative, environmentally sound technology to lower emissions of greenhouse gases, improve institutions and cooperation within the government to increase the opportunities to adapt and mitigate, use subsidies to encourage the reuse of renewable energy and decrease subsidies that go towards activities that result in greenhouse gas emissions, introduce regulation to set standards for energy efficiency, and introduce institutional approaches such as laws and regulations as well as government programs. Personally, I have learned that if we act now, there is hope. With modern medical technology, I could live till 2100. Granted, I would be 102, but it's still possible. I'll be able to see the results of our actions today and see if we can effectively use adaptation and mitigation strategies to deal with climate change. World leaders today talk about slow and gradual change. They talk about moving from coal to natural gas and then to renewables. I think that incremental change like this takes too long. We need to act now. We need to live our lives as sustainably as possible. We need to make the right choices. We need to compost and carpool and set our AC to a reasonable temperature in the summer instead of an icebox. All of these little changes we make have a snowball effect. They lead to us making bigger changes, such as putting solar panels on our house or buying an electric car. Any change that happens starts with us, and what we do makes a difference. We haven't done a good job so far. We need to do better, for my sake. I can make it to 102, right? Thank you.